This is a Culture Inject production.
Hello. Welcome back. And this is a big welcome back because we've been away for a while. As always, I'm Laura, and today I'm joined by...
You are joined by me, and I am Chirag.
And me, I am Jason.
Oh, Jason,
Yay.
What's up?
Oh, this and that, just enjoying the heat in Canada. How's the weather where y'all are?
Well, I'm in Texas, so not very hot, It's pretty cool down here.
Oh, man.
That doesn't sound right. Where in Texas are you?
Austin.
Okay, I've got a friend who lives in Harlingen. It's like down close to the Mexican border.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wait, and another friend in San Antonio. A couple model-making friends.
Nice.
And how about you, Laura?
Yeah.
How's things in the UK?
Yeah, I'm in very, very sunny England. It's been a really nice day, although it's been really windy recently. So, but other than that, the weather's great. But basically, as always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at HBO The Nevers. You can find us on Twitter at HBO The Nevers and at The Nevers Podcast without the A. If you've got any ideas, comments, or questions, then you can email them to us at theneverspodcast@gmail.com. And of course, if you like what you hear, it would be great if you could leave us a rating and review. But it has been a really long time since we've seen each other, so we thought that we'd drop in and kind of try and figure out what's going on with the Nevers and, when it's coming back. Because, yeah, we also have a nice little project to announce that's coming up in the future. But yeah, so other than what's happening with the weather, has anyone been up to anything super exciting since we last chatted, which was for the Serenity conversation?
That's
after
true.
Our Firefly retrospective way back in February.
Yeah, we assembled like the Avengers to talk about Serenity. We really had
We
like
did
a summit. It was fun.
It was good talking to y'all about it.
What's going on with you?
Not much. How it is. Work takes up most of the time, and then I've actually been focusing more on model building lately, kind of building that up, because it's a thing that I go and come back to every now and again. Like I do a bunch, so I'm like, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm gonna go work on something else. But yeah, I've been focusing on that and getting pretty good results on TikTok with it.
Cool. Is that so? Like models of what exactly? What are they representing?
Well, mostly sci-fi. I mean, I think you can I don't know how I'm going to say this since we're doing a podcast, not video, but I think you can see the Enterprise above my shoulder there. So mostly sci-fi, but getting into cars and tanks and planes and ships, things where I can really do other model making techniques like weathering and chipping and just making things look used and real.
Cool. That sounds like a fun tactile activity.
It is. It is meditative, actually. It's because you can kind of get in, just get kind of honed in on it.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
How about?
Well, for me, yeah, I've been doing a lot more cerebral activity.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of things happening in my head. I'm like Professor Xavier. I'm just sitting in a chair and just thinking about the world for 8 hours a day, and getting really into writing. I'm writing a lot.
Oh, that's
really fun. Yeah. And I made some friends over here at UT Austin, and they're making films.
Oh,
sort of like you do, short films and stuff. So, I'm kind of just for fun getting involved with that and dipping my toe in that hot spring to see what that feels like.
Good. It's enjoyable, especially when you're with a group that really wants to be doing it.
Yeah.
Although Laura's the professional among us.
Oh yeah.
Ha! Professional actor.
I like the quotation.
With like my quotations, because do you know what what have I been up to? A lot of music stuff, and then I've done one film job on Sam Mendes' new film. Nice. Which is just like an 80s romance type thing. But it was really good. It was like a whole week. That was a really good job. So that was fun. I forgot about that until you mentioned my serious career as an actor. yeah, I don't know. I've just been kind of obviously just doing like regular work and stuff, but also I've been trying to take time every week to kind of go somewhere new or like do something that I haven't done, or just go places.
Where in? I mean,
explore the world.
If you don't want to publish this, I guess approximate location. Where in the UK are you? Like, are you like a Londoner or?
So I'm based in Essex, so just outside of London, which is the sweet spot. Yeah, it's good. I kind of live like a perfect distance from the city, the sea, just kind of in a little town. So everything's close enough to visit, but not so close that it, ruins being in a nice little town out the way.
Have you guys ever read that Neil Gaiman book, Neverwhere, by chance?
I haven't.
No.
Okay, well, I read that book. The entire conceit of the book is that there's London, and then underneath there's an underground London where it's kind of like the Stranger Things thing, where there's an upside down world.
Okay.
Where everything is kind of like mythical and scary and, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know anything about London. So when I was reading the book, there's this big thing about like Mind the Gap and like all these things, these iconic, like, I don't know, like representations of what London is that were in the book, the reference for Londoners. And then when I went to London for the first time, it felt like I was in a fantasy land because I was such a big fan of that book. I was like, oh, Mind the Gap. Oh my gosh. Like from the book.
Sometimes it's a really big gap. Like sometimes they're like, mind the gap, and there's no gap because the train line's right up. And then in some stations, or depending on where the train's pulled into, the gap is like absolutely huge and you could literally just fall down it. So yeah, really mind the gap.
Definitely.
But there's some stations now that have like an extra set of glass doors. So you can't fall in onto the train tracks. Because when you're waiting for a train and it's really busy in the morning, everybody's like pushing up. And you're like standing right near the edge and you kind of don't want to be there. But if you're not right on the edge, you're not going to get on the next train and you're not going to get to work. So the glass doors is a really good idea, to just so that the train pulls in and then they open. So you can push right up to the glass doors without fear of death and then get on your train. They should put them in every station. So as we were saying, we wanted to give our subscribers some new content to listen to because we've been away for so long since our retrospective Firefly and our Serenity discussion, and we want to basically come back and discuss The Nevers. So here's what we do know at the minute. So as you're saying, like they're working on it hard at the minute. Chirag, would you like to tell us something about what's happening?
You know what, Laura? I would love to tell you something. So apparently there is a new showrunner named Philippa Gaslet. Do you know who she is? Are you familiar with what she's worked on?
I am not. I actually went to her IMDb and it seemed pretty sparse, and nothing really jumped out at me.
Yeah, I did the same. I've not seen anything that she's worked on.
But I feel like the name sounds familiar though. Like there's nothing in her IMDb, but I'm sure I've heard that name before.
So do you guys feel like her anonymity to you is a good thing or a bad thing?
Probably good.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to make any unfair judgments on. Like there's literally no data to say like, oh well, this person always made this kind of show, so who are they to do this?
Also, I think with like there's so much TV around, a lot of the time, like there are so many directors and producers of TV shows. Like other than Joss Whedon and maybe a couple of others, like when I think about a TV show, I don't necessarily like that's my first thing that I pin onto about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure a lot of people don't often pay that much attention to the directors and the writers, which is, unfortunate because they're the ones making the show. But
I actually do tend to do that. But I would say like the thing that I'm glad about is I'm just happy it's not like J.J. Abrams or something. Not that I don't like J.J. Abrams, but I just the thing that I like about TV and movies is like when I'm watching it, I feel like I can see the person in it. Like there's a human being who's saying something that they care about or expressing something about the world. And, that's why like Transformers movies, I can't feel Michael Bay in that, so I don't know what he's about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So
explosions.
So, like,
I was going to say explosions. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is Michael Bay.
But I'm glad she's clearly somebody who hasn't had an opportunity yet to break big. So she's worked on small stuff, which means she's probably artisanal, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good craftsman, probably a meritocracy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like she deserved it, and it wasn't like a connections thing. I don't know.
It's exciting wondering what's coming next. We've been waiting for like what, a year now?
10 years.
No, it has been like a year, hasn't it? Wasn't it April it came out last? So yeah, it's been a while.
Because I found it because we have in Canada we have HBO through another provider, and they must have just aired their like posted the last episode when I found it. So yeah, it would have been about like May for me. And you guys were talking about it for months before it came out.
Yeah, I think it came out in America and then England got it like 2 or 3 weeks. I think it might have been 2 or 3 weeks after, but yeah, through Sky.
Yeah.
But
We got it first.
But yeah.
And a little aside, I listened. I said as soon as I finished watching the show, I listened to you guys do talk about the first 6 episodes while I was starting my new job and doing flooring. And I'm like, I like those guys. They're very smart.
Nice.
So
Cool.
I'm happy to be in this company.
You know, I thought the same thing about you when I was talking about it. You know, there's a guy in Canada doing some flooring, and he's probably a cool guy. He's listening to me right now. Oh, you know, we actually got the first 4 episodes before everybody, like with the journalists.
Right,
who,
yeah.
Like get out the good word about something. We got the first 4 episodes like a sneak peek.
Yeah, some screeners.
And, yeah, we got screeners. That's what they're called. Yeah.
So prior to the airing of season 1A, Jocelyn and his writers had written the entire season, which was 10 episodes. However, now Philip has come in. She and her team wrote completely new scripts, 6 of them, which brings up the total count to 12. So what are our thoughts on that? Like, do we think that she threw out Joss's scripts, and why do you think the episode count went from 10 to 12? And like, is that going to be a good or a bad thing in the balance of like part 1 and part 2, do you think?
I don't think that's indicative of quality. I think that's just a fluid process. Sometimes it expands or contracts. It's just the nature of shooting schedules, or, you know, how much script you can fit into one episode and how many episodes there are. I'm actually glad that there's more episodes, so it doesn't feel like there's too much shoved in. Mm-hmm. Like you see sometimes with these Disney Plus shows where everything is happening in the first episode and it's over like tomorrow.
I do think that the episode expansion is also partly due to the delay between seasons. So we got a first half. Okay, well, let's make a second half. Mm-hmm. And since we have the time, because they're in an interesting position, they've had a chance to get all the data like that, you know, producers get from and fan feedback and what people are saying, so they've actually been able to alter the second half of the season on the fly, which is an opportunity not many people get. You kind of guess at it, but there's been so much lead time that you can kind of see what's really sit down and assess what worked and what didn't work. Now, I think almost everything worked in the first half of the season. Yeah,
it was good. I mean, for me, things like English TV shows are generally, sorry, I'm getting all my wrong words, generally 6 episodes long. So like having a 6-episode series, like it makes part 1 of this series feel like its own series.
Yes, it does.
Already. And it rounded off really nicely at a point where it was kind of like we'd learned kind of just the right amount of information, but we still got cliffhangers and everything's like really happening. And now it's like been the length of time that you would wait from one season to another season. So it's like weird that it's like season 1, part 1, and then part 2, when it almost feels just like 2 seasons. But if that means that after this, we're going to get a season 2 and it will have just like 12 straight episodes because they're not going to be interrupted with like directorial issues or COVID and everything, you know, it will just be like, hey, we can just film our TV show with like nothing going on. But yeah, so 12 episodes feels good because it is like a first half, second half. Yeah, the 4 episodes might have felt rushed. I mean, they might have done like the last episode longer or like expanded the run times.
So how closely do you think Philippa is going to stick to Joss's vision for the series?
I think close. I mean, I think there'll be a bit more, but I do feel like the existing scripts would have at least provided a foundation for everything moving forward.
I was like trying to look on the internet and find out like, you know, release dates and information and everything, and it's kind of like tricky. There's like, it's just almost like the show doesn't exist anymore. Like when you look at it on the internet, it's like, the Nevers, what? But yeah, I don't know. I like you mentioned, I feel like if the scripts that were in existence already, I would imagine would have been really strong, hopefully, following on from the first part of the season. So if anything, because she's had the unfortunate hold up of COVID and all of that, that has given her more time, I guess, to add to this show and expand upon it a little bit. I feel like as long as it's following kind of hopefully a general story arc and whatever was gonna happen in the main story, I feel like I'll be happy with whatever's put out as long as it follows the flow of what's already been put out, because we really loved that. So it'd be like the worst case scenario is that we come back for part 2 and the whole vibe is just completely different. But I doubt that's going to happen, because the cast and the crew seem to have everything solidly down.
I vehemently disagree with both of you.
Okay.
I feel like I want the vibe to be... I love the first half. I love the first half. I think we talked about it for 30 hours? But I feel like it would be... So let's say that she's in charge. Philippa's in charge. I don't think that I would want to see a show where she's in charge, but she's telling us somebody else's version of the story, or she's just slavishly serving something that's not hers. So I want to see... this is with anything, really. I want to see the person who's making it make it about themselves in a way. Otherwise, I feel like it's not genuine. It's not authentic if it's not that. So I think the vibe has to change. I think things have to be different for the second half. And if they're not, I think that could jeopardize the existence of the show. If she doesn't make it hers and she just tries to recreate what Joss did, and he's a very unique guy, so you can't try to copy him. Only he can do what he does. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah, you want to get her voice and her take on this.
Exactly.
Already existing story.
Let me revise my earlier statement to this. The look of the show won't change, because it's already established the crews work together for half a season. Well, I guess a whole season now. The actors know their characters, so they'll portray them as they portray them. I think it's going to come down to messaging, themes, and subtext. And getting that and I think that's where you'll get the Philippa. So it may fundamentally structurally look the same, but the underlyingness will be different.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I think what Chirag said about not just wanting someone that's kind of making a Joss copy. Kind of flows into our next point, which is that Joss is still serving as an executive producer, and presumably he's consulted on the second half of the season and given notes on anything that maybe he didn't like. So I guess, Chirag, would you if you think that they've still worked together on things and it is still Jossie, you'd be fine with that? Or do you think that she maybe has put her print on this a lot stronger and not maybe taken on too many notes from Joss?
Well, I think that the saga of creative tension is very long, especially we've seen it happen. Too many cooks in the kitchen. One person who has strong ideas and another person who has different ideas, and those ideas not mixing and the cohesiveness kind of breaking apart or something. We've seen that happen so many times. So I think that it should be a situation similar to, I guess the best example I can come up with is George Lucas's involvement with Star Wars. He still comes to set and he has a coffee and he takes pictures with the grip or whatever, but he's not in charge of who Luke Skywalker's daughter is, or whatever's happening in Star Wars.
Right.
He's just kind of there to support. And if you have any questions about Star Wars or whatever the intention of this was or that was, you can ask him. But he's not creatively responsible for what's happening. I think there has to be one cohesive, maybe auteur is the wrong word, but I think there has to be one person who knows what they're doing. I don't think democracy works when it comes to creating something distinguishable from the muck of media.
You never know whether you're going to get a second season, so it's possible they extended it to tell a more complete story just in case, while leaving threads there for a second season if HBO does continue to go through with it. But I feel like they will, because once again, if the numbers weren't there after this much time, they could have just canned the whole thing. And instead of going to all the effort of putting on pause, twice? Or just the once? And then going through new staffing, new writing, it feels like HBO is in support of the program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I know on things like Netflix, things seem to get cancelled really quickly, but now that things aren't just on TV, and like say, like we've got Now TV in England to watch Sky TV shows, so I can go on any time and watch. Like people could go on there now and just go, oh look, the Nevers, I've not watched that, I'm bored, let's put it on. Like it's going to constantly get new viewers before the second half of the season comes. I think it's silly, and in the grand scheme of things, with how much money these TV companies have, like to axe a show that has even like the small possibility of going on to be a really long running good thing when they have so many shows, like it's kind of like, you know, why axe that and then try something new when you can just push that a little further. But yeah, it would be good if we get again like another ending where it's you've got your answers but there's still a cliffhanger or something where the show can go on. But it'd be nice to have some kind of, you know, a nice finish just in case. Yeah, I feel like they may have done that.
And if they're moving forward, if they follow, like, I mean, I said if they follow story structure, of course they're going to follow story structure. You're going to see because basically we've broken the midpoint of the season. So the second half now is going to be all much more active. The protagonists, our heroes, are going to be much more active. Like, because the first, you know, 1 or 2 episodes is all set up, and then the next 3 or 4 is them. They're reacting to what they're experiencing. They don't have all the skill. They don't have all the knowledge yet to take the fight to the bad guy, whatever the case may be. Now that we cross the midpoint, they have new information. They can be much more active. So I think it's going to be a much more interesting second half.
Well, don't you think that if they are following story structure just formulaically, you would need to end up in the future at the very end? Back where you started, if you're the main character, at some point you need to go back to the future, Marty McFly. Yeah,
it depends, because if one of my theories holds true, feel free to read my articles on HBO theneverspodcast.com. That let's say if True went back to the future, well, she's going to be deposited into a different body because her body the body that we saw at the end of episode 6 is dead. So she's got nothing to no body to go back to.
No, I'm saying it like an actual situation of time travel, not necessarily the consciousness travel that we saw, but them getting in like Penance's time machine and going to the future.
Oh, and actually traveling.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to say.
You know, I'm already going to call myself wrong. I'm going to call myself wrong already, because I think the important thing that you were saying about, you know, the Victorian era being a good representation of where we are today as like a transformational time of these disempowered people getting empowered literally by superpowers, and, you know, the harbinger of war, World War I, World War II, the Civil War, you know, division, polarity, all these things happening. And can the introduction of the spores change that future? So maybe it's more productive to stay in the Victorian era.
Yeah, I'd prefer to see them doing whatever they're doing now, and that just is changing the future. They don't need to go to the future. They're just making a better future because the Galanthi has seen what happened.
Yeah, because
I was like, well, that didn't work. Better try something else.
When True got her, when we saw some of True's memories, when she found the Galanthi sphere in episode 6, we do the flashback to when she's telling Penance about it, and Penance says, "Too bad we'll never know if it works." So I think that's telling of where the show is going. That we may only do time jumps just to provide context for True. But yeah.
Myrtle's in the future, though.
I know, that's
if
right.
I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'm a bit rusty.
Okay, my theory is that Swan is Biner, and that I believe the Galanthe took everyone who is still alive at the end of future segment in episode 6, including the guy who betrayed them because he's still alive. We didn't see him die. We saw him get shot in the shoulder. I think that guy's the bigger king. He's got those crazy eyes. Okay, so because the argument, the pushback I've got when I put that theory out there is like, yeah, but True doesn't remember her past. You're right. She didn't remember the past of Amalia until she found the Galanthe sphere, and she got all that. She saw parts of Amalia's life before she committed suicide. I believe that the Galanthe, like I said, the Galanthe controls the spores. I believe that, we'll just use Hugo as an example. I believe Hugo is Biner, and he has his memories of Hugo as he existed before he drowned, and then Biner got dumped into him. True did not get those memories yet because she wasn't ready to deal with that aspect while she was fixing herself and getting on track, becoming her new self.
Hugo is weirdly progressive, just in terms of how, openly sexual he is in a Victorian age. Yeah. It is very modern day.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. And there's something, his little
ferryman,
the ferryman coin.
Ferryman.
It just, for whatever reason, I could be way up, and it reminds me of the little thing he put on his, to use the thing that he puts on his temples so he can go into the sex program.
We can then segue very naturally into a conversation about producer-director Andrew Bernstein, who has also worked on The Outsider and Foundation, broadcasted on Apple TV Plus, as well as Ozark, who has joined as a producer and director. So what are your very controversial thoughts on that?
Much like with Philippa Goslett, I don't have any real previous knowledge of this person. Mm-hmm. I looked, and the only shows I've watched where he's been a director for some of the episodes, but only for 4 or 5 episodes in each, was Elementary and then House. So, I mean, those are 2 shows that I love. But these other shows, Outsider and Foundation, I've not watched those. Have you guys seen them?
I haven't seen Foundation, but yeah, a number of the shows that he's spent time directing on, I have watched and enjoyed. So, I am confident with this person's skill to come in and help expand this universe. Just because of the wide variety of genres that he's worked in. Because it's one of the things, The Nevers is it's a sci-fi show, but it's also a period show, and it's also, it's not like it's I guess primarily sci-fi, but it's multiple genres, and I think that background is going to pay off. Chirag, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I agree with you guys. I haven't seen anything he's done, but since you've endorsed him from having seen his stuff, I trust that, and you're willing to stake your reputation on him being a good director.
So just an example of the shows that he's done that I've watched. I can't remember specific episodes, but Pan Am, House, Jack Ryan, Mad Men, Psych, which seems like an outlier in this. The Americans, Manhattan, so a number of HBO shows. Like Psych was just a silly the American network, just a silly show. It ran for 7 seasons, but it's an outlier compared to a lot of the other stuff he's done. So yeah, he's got a very broad experience.
Okay. He seems like a prestige director. Mm-hmm. He seems like he knows where to put the camera, and I think that's all you really need for a director on TV.
Yeah.
They're not the same as directors in film.
Exactly, because a TV director comes in, they're working within a structure that already exists. So they can bring some of themselves to it, but fundamentally you're beholden to the producers and the production staff.
The biggest question for us is when we're going to get part 2 of this series. And I mean, like I said, trawling the internet, our best answer for our listeners is that we don't have a clue. We're thinking it's definitely going to be this year, but beyond that, we don't have a date. I feel like there was some there was some secret info that said it might be around July. And then, you know, that's kind of, we're getting nearer and nearer, and I'm like, we haven't had a trailer, there's been no information on the internet, there's been nothing. And maybe we might get it in the summer. But again, I feel like even if we was going to get it in August, we'd have some little snippets of information. So, but, you know, whether we get in the summer or the fall.
My feeling, and I'm going to say fall, like, you know, when all the other shows would kind of naturally start, only because Amy, I can't believe it. Anyway, the actor who plays Malady, she did a Instagram post where she was recording ADR. So okay, that tells me that their edits are basically locked down for a number of episodes. Now that still leaves, you know, fine tuning, color grading, special effects, music, etc. But they're at a point where they can safely redub audio. So it tells me they're fairly along in the editing process, but obviously not done yet. So I think it's conceivable that we could see something in like September/fall.
I feel like September, yeah, like early fall would be the latest to kind of risk releasing it, because it's been such a long time. That'll be over a year since we got the first part. Yeah, like if you're trying to sell us that this is one series and not actually two series, then it's kind of strange to have that big gap. Even, you know, I don't know. I feel like they're gonna get it to us as quick as they can, but they're not, until they have a solid image in their mind. They're not going to release any like trailers or snippets or teasers. But to be fair, like for the first series, we only got kind of like I think we got like the teaser trailer, and then we got a trailer. I'm trying to think of how like far before, how close it was to the show. Maybe only like a month or so.
Because you guys once again were on this long before I was, but I feel like there was not a huge marketing campaign leading up to it. Like not like Lovecraft Country. There was a lot of marketing for that.
Yeah, so basically we were going to do a Twitch stream and do basically a live rewatch of The Nevers, which will kind of fill our time from now till the new series, and not only allow us to rewatch it and get super psyched again for the return, but to delve in deeper. So yeah, we're going to do a live stream on Twitch, and what we'll be able to do is, I think we've kind of decided we're going to do one episode per week. We're going to do like 3 weeks in a row, and then we'll take a little break of a week or two, and then we'll come back for 3 weeks. So it should hopefully take us up to whenever The Nevers is coming back.
That would be ideal.
And each episode, each stream will be us watching the episode live, which you'll have to, on the viewer's side, watch it on a screen in your house, because we can't show the episode because, you know, we'll get
it's almost more like a commentary.
Yeah, basically. So we'll be watching it, and you'll get to see our lovely faces as we watch it. But you won't be able to see the show itself. You'll be watching that on your end, and we'll all be like, is everybody ready to click play in 3, 2, 1? And so we can discuss the show and take questions as we're watching it. And also, once it finishes, we can have a bigger discussion at the end. So it'll be nice, because a lot of the time, you know, you really think about things in the moment when you're watching it. And then even by the time you get, you know, your pen and paper to write a note, it's gone from your head. So it'd be nice to have a live watch with people, and they can come and chat with us whilst we're watching it.
Because when Laura and I were bouncing the idea back and forth, we were thinking like, we can like go for broke, do 3 episodes at a time, or like 2 episodes, and then we're kind of like, well, maybe one, because we can a viewing, and then we can discuss during, and then spend some time afterwards, and then it's a bit more digestible. Yeah, that way.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better, because I think our listeners know how long we can go on for about things. Moving on. But yeah, basically, it'll be on Twitch for sure, and then possibly on YouTube or whatever as well. But we can also record it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you're right. We can save it, and then we can pop it on the Nevers YouTube channel, right? And then people can always.
Yeah, it's nice to have it on YouTube, like to record it and put it on YouTube, not live, because not everybody can get around at the same time. So it's good obviously to have live viewers so you can discuss as you're watching it, but also not everybody will be able to see it live.
Speaking of, are you still streaming your gaming?
Yeah, I haven't done so much recently. I've done a couple streams with Tig, just discussing like random stuff like Kenobi and TV shows. But yeah, gaming wise, yeah, I'm still doing it, just not like regularly. I was kind of doing it regularly every Wednesday or Tuesday, and then like on a Sunday I'd like get my mates together to have like a big game session. But you know, life. I will now read a letter. So we have an email from Stephanie. Yeah, this has got many points in it. So what we'll do is I'll read the intro and then we'll kind of go point by point. So, dear Laura and team, I have been re-listening to your podcast about each episode of The Nevers. They still remain insightful. I think you should go back and listen to them to hear how you were able to predict many of the things that happened in the show even before you saw the next episode. I'm impressed. However, as I think back to the episodes, there are some things I have questions about. I hope you can give me some insights into what they mean or might mean. My questions aren't in any particular order. So, point number 1. I do not understand about the bomb materials and the work stoppage in which Lord Masson played a role. What was this all about? How did it move or provide clues to what is happening with the Touched? How does it pertain to the storyline? Why were there rocks at the warehouse? Why were there weapons? And who moved the weapons if they were ever in that building? So yeah, just this point's just pertaining to the whole Masson fiasco, and obviously, oh, you know, there was a spy in our midst, and it all kind of played into that. You guys got any insights?
Well, it's all setups and payoffs, because we had to show the factory first and the strike, because we had to know that Masson is involved in warmongering and he's involved in strike breaking, because labor rights are a theme in the show. Okay, so we need to know that the bomb warehouse existed in the first place, because that's where the trap is set. So we need to set up that it exists to set the trap there. And the trap was set to... I didn't get a chance to rewatch it this week, so maybe you guys can correct me on this. Lucy brought them there because they were meant to trap True and whatever other Touched were there, right? And that's why there were rocks in the thing, because it was a setup. And then, of course, you know, they have the fight with Lucy, where we learn something. Just because she touches something doesn't mean it explodes. Because we watched her, they did a cutaway showing her grabbing a crate to get up. And that's a little tiny hint that that they can control their powers. Just a little one. That's an aside. So, finding out that Lucy is a turncoat, sending her away, but also using her to find out where the real bomb factory is, so that True and team can be like, screw you, Masson. You tried to trap us, now we're going to blow up your bomb factory.
Yeah, just kind of like that scene that you're seeing, you're thinking, like with the bombs and the workers, yeah, this is just like setting up, you know, Masson's a dick, and this is like how the world is, and, you know, everything's weapons and power and money, and but then obviously it plays perfectly into the trap with Lucy, and because Lucy is working with Masson, when they've come up with their plan to go there and blow up the factory, of course she's told him, and they've got rid of all the weapons and replaced them with rocks. So yeah, just but again, like we were saying earlier about how well thought out this TV show is, like when you see that original scene, you don't like, I don't know, in most things you think, oh, that's going to come back later, like they're showing this for a reason. But yeah, it's nice to have a good payoff.
This show is so good at setups and payoffs, and it's often subtle. They use cutaways to a ridiculously effective degree, because it's that whole thing. You might not have seen it, but your brain did.
Do you guys remember when this was a long time ago, when Lavinia she was rolling into the underground factory thing, and she was like, "This means war" or something like that?
Oh yeah. It was later on when she's like, "No, there's no hope of a cure." Yeah.
She used the word war.
My God, I have to watch out for that again.
Yeah, I'm trustworthy. I promise you. She said war, and what was I think what that is a harbinger. They're setting up a big conflict, and I think what it is, obviously we see in the future there's a big war between the Free Lifers and the PDC. Yeah. So there is a big war in the future. There is a big apocalyptic thing. But I think what we're seeing the seeds of that being sown in the present or in the Victorian age, and then the whole journey of the show is introduce these people who can walk on water and manipulate electricity and do shit with stuff, superpowers, and see what that does to that war lust that's brewing underneath the country.
War can only exist if there's inequality, and one group has some and one group doesn't have another. So if you can level the playing field by giving everyone power, there's no need for
mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
All right. Next point. So where is the Swan storyline going? He asks Augustus to lend his name. However, this storyline seems to have disappeared. Do you think that this will be revealed later, or has the storyline been cut because the number of episodes have been cut? I wouldn't mind if it goes away. As of right now, it doesn't move the storyline forward.
I mean, I don't think it's been dropped or will be dropped. I think it's difficult because you think that this is kind of like leading us to a point where Augustus is maybe gonna kind of stick up for himself. Something will go down and it'll be the first time he really like sticks up for himself, because he's like, what the F have you done? You've used my name for this thing, and that's no good, and they'll have a falling out, and he'll become like more of an independent man. And but now he's kind of already done that in episode 6. He's shown himself using his powers, and he's played this real pivotal role, especially after like standing up to Penance and like going on the opposite team. So yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to play. This kind of opens up my broader question of, do we think when we return, everything's going to be full on go, go, go? Or do we think it's going to return to a somewhat normality, kind of like lull in the action? Because they're going to have to like go back and kind of reassess their situation and think about everything that's going on. And that will give time for these kind of normal world things, like everything that's going on with Masson and, with Swan and whatever, that are still kind of living their relatively normal lives because they are not touched. Give those storylines time to play out while the touched are kind of figuring out their next plan of action. Because I feel like that's probably where it's like, yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen to start with, so that we will retouch on this kind of storyline with Swan and everything.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. I did want to say one thing about that though, because I got a chance to talk to the VFX supervisor of the Nevers.
Yes, you did.
And Johnny Han, the cool guy. And I asked him specifically about Augustus. And I tried to like smuggle my ideas into his head, because what I wanted to tell him, I asked him, have you seen Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds? And I saw like on his face, like, he was saying, yeah, I've seen it, but he was trying not to say it too loudly with his expressions. So I feel like, based on either something that already was the intention, or that I subliminally like put into the world, that we're going to see Augustus at some point be like, you harness that bird power in a very Hitchcockian way. That could be interesting.
I actually have to deviate from my original notes, in that now that you guys got me thinking about some stuff already. And you're right, Laura, in particular about Augustus. Augustus needs to become his own person. Like that's clear. And he's already started the process, as you said, by going on the offensive with True and breaking from Penance in that case, because he has to do what he feels is right. Swan, because his secondary character, we're not going to get the whole story on that yet. But Lavinia specifically states, when her and Hugo are at lunch, or not Hugo, Augustus are at lunch, she says something about our good name. She alludes to how important their name is. Now that Swan has put Hugo's name on his illicit sex club, I think it's going to cause a break between Lavinia and Augustus, and he's going to have to continue that journey of becoming a more complete person. And I do think, because Swan specifically talks about using the club for blackmail, I think that's going to come back to play too, because look at the touched and the people in power aren't playing by the same rules, so the touched are probably going to do something they don't want to do, and that is basically blackmail people to further their goals and make sure they don't get crushed by Masson and crew. Because by having Hugo in their corner with his name attached to this thing, and if because he's going to find out what's happened. So, he'll potentially be able to use that. So, like I said, I think Hugo's going to become a very, very central character. Swan, I don't know. I still stand by my assertion that he's minor, and that's going to come back to play later. But I think this is all about setting up Hugo becoming a much bigger, much more powerful player.
You mean Augustus?
Augustus, god damn it.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
It's alright, it's hot.
Anyway, so that's my thoughts, and yeah, I kind of changed them on the fly because you guys point out some very, very good things, and that's why it's kind of hard for me to do what I do with I can assess things in a vacuum, but when we get in these conversations, more things click.
Okay, so 2 things happened in the lab of Dr. Haig that were not addressed. One is that when the Galamphy glows, Lavinia suddenly gets a headache. I wonder what that means or foretells. Also, in the lab, when Amalia is running and needs to escape, Beth gets her powers back and raises the lift so that Amalia can escape. I wonder what that means. What do you guys think both those things mean? So Lavinia's headaches and then Beth having her powers back even though she's been messed with by the doctor.
Okay, Lavinia's a mystery to me, and it's actually kind of getting frustrating because unlike everyone else, they're really metering out her clues. It feels like she's playing both sides, but to what end? We didn't see her get a spore, but I feel like there might be something there. I don't know. She's a complete mystery to me, and even on repeated rewatches, I haven't been able to form any. There's not enough information for me to even guess as to what is she, what's she doing, why is she doing it.
Well, Tyler, a long time ago, mentioned that her name is from a Shakespeare play. Do you remember which one Coriolanus? Is that the one? Yeah, it's Coriolanus. I've since read Coriolanus. So,
okay.
The character of Lavinia in that play is heavily traumatized, very heavily traumatized, to the extent where, she's assaulted and her tongue is cut off and her arms are cut off so she can't tell anybody or write down who assaulted her and all these crazy things. So I think obviously she's coming as a character from a place of trauma, and she's in a wheelchair for a reason. And I think that she's not going to survive.
We've intentionally not been shown how Lavinia ended up in a wheelchair because we know she wasn't always in a wheelchair because she used to go skating with Swan and Augustus. And I feel like that very important piece of information is going to be a huge piece to the Lavinia puzzle when and if they reveal it.
Yeah, I think like you, Lavinia is still kind of a mystery, and I'm still on the fence of whether she's kind of good or bad or what's going on. I don't know. I have the feeling that she doesn't know. She's just looking for answers and what they're for, and whether she's going to get them. She's not sure. But I feel like I'd like to think that no matter what happened, if it came down to finding out that Augi's touched and his life would be on the line, I feel like she would step out straight away. Like if whatever she's doing and experimenting on meant that he was going to be in trouble. Because it's like she's got this facade that she cares about the touch, blah, 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 whatever it's for. But when it's him, it'll be different, because whether she doesn't agree with him being friends with Hugo and stuff now is completely different to that. He's all that she has, family wise, right?
Well, this is the contradiction that Lavinia is. So she has the orphanage where she's trying to protect the touch, but then she's also kidnapping touched and turning them into zombies. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I also think that Haig is the Free Life general. I'm convinced that the Free Life general who wasn't dead at the end of episode 6, that segment, is Dr. Haig. But yeah, so his inability to properly lobotomize / control them, or the spores just rewire your brain so you're not always lobotomized. Which, in the sense that if nothing else, if it is foreshadowing, it means that it gives a lot of those characters that, nameless characters at this point, but it gives us hope that they're not forever. Except for the ones that he, took off their jaws and turned them into whatnot.
Half
But you know what I mean?
robot
Because you have the you have the henchmen, the ones who are like the stormtroopers, and you have the workers. It's like there's two different classes of touch that have been lobotomized. So I guess it makes sense because class warfare is also a theme in the show.
Do you think that Beth is gonna come back and be more of a character
given that we saw her twice in the first half of the season? I would say so. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
So the next point of the email, we see that Mr. Masson's daughter is touched by the spores the Galanthe drops. We assumed from the headstone that she had died, but remember, when the telephone man went into the basement and heard the growling, might that have really been Dr. Masson's daughter?
Once again, it's kind of that whole like Lavinia thing. There's not really enough to, because we haven't, with the exception. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. With the exception of a couple of touched, their physical form generally remains human, except for what's her name who grew tall. Isn't there one who's like glows blue? But in general, they just look and they're normal, passable, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the Beast from X-Men. Right. He was a doctor, but after the mutation, he got turned into a beast.
So yeah, it's a pretty safe bet that that's the case.
Yeah, I think.
But why would she turn into?
Yeah, I think that's kind of our view.
We didn't see anything, so we'll just say monster as a general term. But
it makes perfect sense that if that is what happened, that Masson is the kind of person that would hide it.
Because I do feel like the powers they gain are a reflection of their desires isn't the right word, but Lucy felt weak and then she became strong, and the one who turns things to glass, what's her name?
Harriet.
That feels very breaking the glass ceiling. Because she specifically alludes to, you know, being as a person of color even less than a white woman in England at the time. So I feel like their powers are reflective of who they are and their wants and needs as people. So the question is, you know, if that's the case, then, you know, what is going on with his daughter? It seems, because and same thing, the tall one. Why can't I remember any of their names? Primrose. I felt like Primrose wanted to be big, you know, just like Tom Hanks. Except she didn't turn into an adult. She got big.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of my thought on that. So there's a lot of questions there, but I think that unless he's keeping a random beast or turned in his basement, who else could it be?
I was just gonna say, why do you think a young girl would become a beast? Like, is it any reflection on her father's true character? And, like, that's the kind of person she would have grown up to become. Because he is like a monster, right? He's a human, real-life monster.
See? There you go. That's.
You know what I was just thinking right now? I just figured it out. So I have the answer. The answer is that she's the Minotaur. Okay. You know the story of the Minotaur? King Minos, okay? He saw this beautiful bull that Poseidon just gave to him. And Poseidon said, sacrifice this to me, and you'll flourish as a king, as a leader of your country, politically. But the bull was so beautiful that King Minos didn't slaughter it, but kept it and slaughtered an uglier bull. And what happened is his wife ended up having sex with that bull and produced the child, which was the Minotaur. And it's a bit of a weird story, but I think mythologically, subconsciously, what it's trying to say is that King Minos failed he failed his rite of passage to be a leader because he was unwilling to sacrifice. He was unwilling to sacrifice that beautiful bull, and that was his failure. And what became of that failure was monstrous, was a labyrinth of just destruction and fear and terror. And I think that is a good metaphor for Masson, because he's a leader in his own right of his country. And the weird thing is that he was also a soldier. So he would have had to have been faced with sacrifice at some point. in his own life. And did he face that, or did he not face that? Did he run away from battle? Is he an effective leader? And what does that mean for his family and his daughter? I'm just like stretching a rubber band here, but I just thought I would throw that in.
I mean, but this is the best part, though. We discuss these theories based on the facts we have at hand, and I would be curious to actually see how often we're right versus how often we're wrong.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, because the show is so well thought out. I think that a lot of the bullshit I'm saying is probably coming from a real place, especially like with Myrtle being the Tower of Babel, just a confusion of language.
Yep.
There's so many beautiful allusions and metaphors in this show. It's so dense. That's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's great.
We love it. So next point is, what does Lucy know about Masson? And what is why is her pin important? I guess the what does Lucy know about Masson question would shoot into she just ran off at the end, right? So what information does she know and that she's got off with, and will there be a possible return maybe? I don't know.
Oh, Lucy's absolutely coming back. There's no way that Lucy is not coming back. As far as the pin, well, once again, I feel that's foreshadowing. But just because if you look at there's only 2 good shots of the Galanthe, and its facial head structure is very elephant-like. So I think that was foreshadowing that. Plus, it gives us backstory into Lucy. Her mother was part of the 40 Elephants, female gang, and so I mean, and they've alluded to Lucy being a thief and thievery, and I didn't steal it. This and that. So I think it's more about just kind of character backstory, character traits, and foreshadowing of, because technically, I mean, with few exceptions, the touched her women, they're going to have to form a gang to fight for their rights and their lives. So,
all right. So why did Swan go to the hanging? He does not have a direct connection to Malady. These are just some of my questions and observations. Oh, that's it. And then she thanks us for an excellent analysis of the Nevers. And she says, "You have made me think in a much deeper and more meaningful way. Sincerely, Stephanie." Thank you very much, Stephanie.
So why did Swan go to the hanging? I mean, just straight out of the box, I'm kind of like, well, he is this rich, generally famous-ish person who's kind of supposed to show his face at important events like this. And this is at the time an important event, like public hangings, and this is like someone that's kind of been on the run for a while and they've been looking for. So, this is a big event. For him not to show his face would be weirder than him to be there.
He said, I mean, you're probably right about that. I feel like from a story perspective, it was so he could bump his head. He hits his head, and
right.
I can't describe the look on his face, but I feel like that's a second half of the season payoff. Something's gonna get jarred loose, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Or
okay. I thought you meant metaphorically, like he needed to bump his head, like
no. Oh yeah, no. Like when he goes to escape, he smokes his head on that steel platform they have, and I feel like there's something there, but that's just a guess based on everything we've seen in the first how shots and cutaways are used in the show.
Cool. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for all of your points. We have discussed them, I think, fairly in depth, and that kind of wraps us up for the catch-up discussion as we await the second half of the season. So I guess we'll take this opportunity to remind everybody where you can find our podcast. So you can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else that you can find podcasts. For any Nevers-related content, you can find us on the web at hbothenevers.com. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's HBO The Nevers and at the Nevers Podcast. On Instagram, and it's at the Nevers Podcast without the A on Twitter. Any comments or questions, again, you can email to theneverspodcast@gmail.com. And if you enjoy the Nevers Podcast, please do leave us a positive review. We will appreciate it a lot. So yeah, thank you to Jason and to Chirag. And yeah, I've enjoyed our discussion today, and I hope that everyone's enjoyed. I think we've kind of breached on a couple new things that we may have not kind of picked up on before or discussed before, which is good that, like, even though we've discussed this show pretty, like...
thoroughly,
and we're still finding new things to talk about, lets us know just how great this show is. Would either of you like to take this opportunity to talk about everything else you do and any social media that you want people to look at? Chirag's like, no, this is it. This is the only presence I want. I don't want anybody else to have any involvement in my life.
I'm untraceable.
Oh, wait. There's that one photo of your Instagram where you're out in the snow and it looked like shorts. What's going on there?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I enjoy the weather in Texas. That's what that is.
Yes, definitely Texas.
Yeah. Did you have a social you want to plug?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jason's Model Shop, because that's what I'm focusing on more these days. While I figure out filmmaking and writing, what's going on with that. And my own podcast, Adventures in Filmmaking, will be returning later than this episode airs. Oh, and actually, Laura was generous enough to do our introduction for the first handful of episodes. So when you listen, Laura introduces us and tells us what the show's about. Because
contrary to my belief that my voice is high pitched and irritating, apparently Jason thinks it's nice to listen to.
It's not. Look, British people sound smart, so you're adding legitimacy.
Oh, I see. It's just because I'm British.
You're making us more posh than we are.
Well, if you do enjoy listening to my voice, then you can come and watch me stream on Twitch, and that's the same as my Instagram tag, which is LauraJP1721. And also on Twitch, I have been doing with Tig, who joined me for the Firefly retrospective series. We've been just discussing all sorts, anime, recent movies, and whatever. And that's just on my Twitch channel. So it's like gaming and nerdy discussions. Yeah. Chirag, definitely don't want people to find you.
Well, no. Well, you can find me streaming on Yahoo, my Kenobi thoughts, and you can find me on Twitter. I'm there sometimes at Mayan Mailman. It's a bad username, I know, but
I love that username. And that's it. We will be back again eventually. Keep an eye on our social medias to know when that will be. Spoiler alert, it'll be whenever The Nevers returns. But we may publish another episode or two before then. I hope we do. Because there's so much more to say. And I like chilling with you guys. So. That's my own spin on the outtakes. So thanks for listening, everyone. And tune in for more, because we're awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
This episode of the Nevers Podcast was written, produced, and edited by Matthew at Culture Inject Studios. The intro and outro music was produced by Guilherme Moraes. We are more than just a podcast. We're a fan community. You can keep up to date on the Nevers and chat with other fans by visiting hbothenevers.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search HBO The Nevers, all one word, and click that follow button. The Nevers Podcast is not endorsed by Mutant Enemy, Warner Media Entertainment, or any of its subsidiaries, including Home Box Office, HBO, and is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. The Nevers and all names, pictures, and audio clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.